Recognize Ms. Porter from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Republicans seem, as Mr. Timmons just did, to acknowledge that immigration can benefit our economy, and they seem to say the problem is unlawful arrival. So let me take them for a minute at their word, and most Americans agree with this, by the way, that lawful immigration is a boon to our country and to our economy. Let's understand why, and then let's look at why that isn't the solution to this problem. Mr. Beer, is the U.S. population growth rate declining?
It's down 90% from its historic highs.
Okay. Can you have a growing economy and a declining birth rate in the long term?
You can have economic growth with a declining birth rate, but it's more difficult.
Okay. And I think we can all look at examples around the world of countries that are struggling with this. So our population will start to decline in just a few years, in 2030, if current immigration and demographic trends continue, correct?
That's right.
So if population does begin to decline, what are some likely harms to the U.S. economy?
Well, look, you look at the Social Security system, if we do not have another 30 million workers available by 2034, then the Social Security Administration expects we will have, then we're facing a situation where taxes are going to have to go up a lot in order to fund the system, and that's going to be a catastrophic hit to taxpayers or to Social Security benefits, one or the other. So that's one example. Obviously, economic growth is going to be impacted as more people retire. We've heard about the employment rate going down. Well, that's because people are retiring, not because fewer people are working. If you look at the prime age employment rate, it's high, but that's not enough to make up for all the retirees that are no longer working.
And Mr. Beer, collectively, even if we just look at Social Security, forget collectively, if we just focus on Social Security, we are talking about, in the next few decades, trillions of dollars of shortfalls that could effectively decimate Social Security.
Yes, absolutely. You're talking about over $12 trillion deficit in the short term.
Okay, so then let's say we agree that we need lawful immigration. And I hear our witnesses and our colleagues on the other side saying, well, lawful immigration, I'm for that. I'm just not for unlawful immigration. So let's talk about this. Of the people who apply, who use the system, and they follow the rules, which I think Americans think we should, they apply for a green card. What percentage of them get it?
That's 3%, so 97% do not get one.
3%. I hear all the time from people that they would like people who want to seek a life in this country to follow the rules and, quote, get in line. But there is no line at all for many, many countries. Can you explain that?
Right. So some countries, you can apply for the lottery, right? If you're from a country without a large legal immigration flow already to the United States. But for many countries, Mexico, India, China, Central American countries, Venezuela now, they're banned from even applying for that green card lottery. So there's no direct path for them. If they don't have a U.S. citizen family member in the United States, they're out of luck unless they are extremely highly skilled individual, PhD, master's degree in STEM, has a chance, again, through the H-1B lottery. So we got lotteries on top of lotteries even for the highest skilled people.
So I think this is a really important point for the American people to understand, and really important for Democrats to stake out here. What is our position on immigration? And it is that immigration is a huge benefit to our economy, from which we all benefit. Whether we are generations past from coming to this country or new immigrants, every American benefits from a strong, stable, globally competitive economy, and we have to have legal immigration to get there. That's platform one, in my view. The second platform is we want people to follow the rules, to have an orderly system. But we have to be honest, despite the efforts of the Biden administration, there is still, because Congress has failed, Republicans and Democrats have failed our economy and the American people because we have not created an orderly system. You cannot wait in line if there is no line. You cannot take your turn if we don't provide a chance to get to the front, to get a chance to apply. So the fundamental problem here is we have a broken immigration system. And what we're seeing in terms of unlawful immigration, we shouldn't be blaming people seeking a better life. We ought to be willing to look in the mirror in this body, in the Capitol, and take responsibility for our failure to update the immigration system and to create an orderly way to boost our economy. I yield back.
Chair
Bar. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's really important for all of us to take a step back and recognize what's really happening here. This is another example of the Republican majority's efforts to continue to demonize immigrants. That's what this hearing is about. The hearings that we've been having on this subcommittee haven't been focused on leading us to a solution or finding bipartisan compromise. Unfortunately, the hearings that this subcommittee has been having have focused on trying to paint the picture for the American people that immigrants should be feared, immigrants should be hated, immigrants are bad, when we know that the contrary is true. And I think it's really important for us to acknowledge some truths if we are going to find a solution, because we absolutely do need a solution to this very significant domestic challenge. Immigrants make our country better. I mean, one of our, Ms. Egrov, you're an example of immigrants improving our country, adding to this country. Our ranking member is another perfect example of that. The examples are all around us. They help our economy. They are part of the fabric of our nation and of our communities, and they represent a net positive to who we are as Americans. But another truth is that the status quo is absolutely unacceptable. And it should be unacceptable to all of us, whether we are Republicans or whether we are Democrats. I represent El Paso, Texas. My border community has seen some of the highest encounters with asylum seekers, with refugees, with people fleeing their homeland, trying to get to safety and security in hours. And I'm a third generation El Pasoan. I'm the only member of this subcommittee and this committee who was born and raised on the border, raised her children on the border. I'm so proud to be a border resident. But I will tell you, my community has seen some significant challenges as a result of the really significant number of people who are fleeing their homeland. And I think it's important for us to recognize it's not just a US issue. We are seeing more people leaving their country across the globe than probably ever before, certainly in the Western Hemisphere. This is historic, at least in my recollection and for my generation. And the response to such a significant challenge shouldn't be to demonize immigrants, but it also shouldn't be to refuse to compromise. We have to compromise and come together if we are going to find the solution. And we should recognize the opportunity in this moment. We have 8 million unfilled jobs in the country. 8 million. We are not achieving all we could achieve as a country without immigrants, and we can't do it. Now, my Republican colleagues will point to H.R. 2, their border bill, as the solution. But guess what? Their border bill is a fantasy, and any of them who've taken the time to read it would recognize it. Any reporter who's taken the time to read it would recognize it. The fundamental component of H.R. 2, the Republican solution, is that Mexico will accept all migrants that we expel from our country. That's never happened. It will never happen. So while they continue to say, oh, we've got our solution, HR2, it's a farce. It's a fig leaf to hide the fact that they bring no real solutions to the table on their own. I'd like to share with all of my colleagues on this dais that there is a solution. It's called the Dignity Act. It's the first bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform bill that addresses the border and beyond. It lives up to our values without the egregious cruelty championed by many on the other side of the aisle. It provides legal protections for immigrants that are here, and it addresses the biggest challenge we have at the border, which is unfair to migrants. The status quo is unfair to migrants, unfair to federal law enforcement, unfair to border communities, unfair to receiving communities. It's time that Congress does its job and engages in bipartisan compromise and finds a real fix. And I encourage everyone to look at the Dignity Act. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Ms. Sparks.
Big Bird, as you can see, we've been joined by Senator Cupid Stunt. Can you just show us how you can be the adult after the silly tweet they sent you?
You can send somebody a virtual hug. How about that?
Big Bird, as always, Senator Cupid Stunt doesn't seem to take anything anyone says, which is wise, seriously. Changing subject again, let's conclude. We have some video of Senator Cupid Stunt trying to dance. Big Bird, you like to dance, yes?
Well, Tony, you have to get up and move. Yeah, so Abby and I, we have virtual dance parties together, and we have a lot of fun. We just kind of move and shake.